You make $15 an hour pushing gurneys through a hospital that never turns its lights off, and at 2 in the morning the only sound on the third floor besides the monitors is the vending machine by the nurse's station humming to itself. A resident in scrubs feeds it $3 for a bag of pretzels and a lukewarm energy drink and doesn't look at you twice. What she doesn't know, what nobody on this floor knows, is that the machine is yours, not the hospital's. Not the vendor, whose sticker is still peeling off the side. Yours. It cleared $510 last month, in quarters and tap-to-pay taps, for a box that restocks itself into your income while you're pushing somebody else's paperwork down a different hallway. It starts 18 months earlier, on the same floor, the same shift. A woman named Renata used to come through twice a week with a hand truck and a case of cold drinks, servicing the 2 machines in the cafeteria that belonged to a regional vending company. She was somewhere past 60, moved like the job cost her nothing, and one slow Tuesday, she caught you actually reading the coin mechanism jam light instead of just kicking the machine like everyone else did. She laughed and said that was the first sign of somebody who'd do fine at this. You asked what this was. She said she didn't work for the regional company. She owned 4 machines of her own, scattered across 2 office buildings and a community college, and the 2 hospital machines she served that day belonged to somebody else entirely, a man she'd sold his first machine to a decade back who'd since built out a whole floor of the building. You figured vending machines were a company thing like billboards or ATMs, something with a logo and a regional sales territory. Renata set you straight over a coffee she bought from her own machine on the house. The barrier was never the machine. A decent refurbished unit ran $1,200 to $2,000, less than a used car, and any wholesale distributor would sell you cases of chips and soda at a price that left real margin. The Actual Bottleneck was the location, a spot with real foot traffic and no other machine already sitting there, because a vending machine with nobody walking past it is just an appliance losing money in a room. Getting a location meant a commission agreement, 10 to 15% of gross sales paid to whoever controlled the space, and most property managers had never once been asked nicely, because most people never think to ask. The break room on the 3rd floor had an empty corner, where a machine used to sit before the old vendor's contract lapsed over a billing dispute nobody remembered the details of. You asked the floor's facilities coordinator, a tired, decent man named Philip, if you could put one there. He said sure, on one condition, no candy after 9 p.m. complaints, and he wanted 12% of gross paid monthly tracked honestly.
You had $800 saved, which covered a used combo machine, snacks and drinks in one unit, off a liquidation listing Renata forwarded you, plus your truck and a Saturday to get it up the service elevator.
The seller, a man clearing out his late father's small route, not 200 off when you told him it was your first one, and you'd probably be calling with questions. You were. The machine sat half-stocked for the first 10 days because you kept second-guessing what to put in it, before Renata told you to stop overthinking and just watch what actually sold. Diet soda outsold regular 2 to 1 on this floor. Protein bars beat candy bars after midnight, every time without exception. You adjusted the mix twice in the first month, and by week 5 the machine was clearing about $340 in gross sales. Product cost eating roughly a third of that, Philip's 12% coming off the top, and what was left, a little over $190, felt smaller than you expected and realer than anything on your paycheck. It was not enough to matter yet. It was enough to notice that money could show up in a location you weren't standing in, doing nothing you had personally lifted a finger for that week. The real education was in the restocking, which nobody warns you eats more of the margin than the commission does if you do it wrong. You were driving to a wholesale club 40 minutes each way for product, burning gas and 2 off-shift hours a week, until Renata showed you her actual route sheet, 6 stops mapped in a loop so the driving time paid for itself across all of them at once. Spoilage was the other lesson. A case of yogurt-covered pretzels sat too long in a warm hallway and melted into a single sweating brick you had to eat the cost of, literally and financially. You started buying shelf-stable only until you understood expiration dates the way a bartender understands pour costs, which is to say, obsessively. The second machine went into the surgical waiting room 2 floors up, a location Philip introduced you to because the facilities coordinator up there had been badgering him for a vendor for months. The third came from Renata directly, who was slowing down and offered you first refusal on one of her 4 machines in the community college snack lounge cellar. Financed the same easy way the first purchase had gone, $400 down and the rest off what the machine itself earned. 3 machines in under a year sounds fast until you do the math out loud. Gross sales across all 3 landed around $1,100 a month. Product and commissions took nearly half of it, and the number left over, call it $600, was steady, boring, and entirely disconnected from how many gurneys you'd pushed that week. An accountant Renata had used for 15 years, a woman named Ellen who worked out of a strip mall office between a nail salon and a mattress store, set you up with an LLC for $110 and explained the 2 things that actually mattered. First, every machine and every commission agreement needed to sit under the company's name because a machine that tips over on a curious kid becomes a lawsuit, and the company, not you personally, needed to be the only thing that lawsuit could reach. Second, keep the hospital job not for the paycheck, which was starting to matter less, but for the health insurance, and because a landlord or a bank someday looks very differently at a person with both a W-2 and a small LLC than a person with neither. The bad offer came from a regional vending management company, the kind with a fleet of branded trucks and a sales floor of its own, that wanted to buy your 3 machines outright for $3,800, plus a signature on an exclusivity agreement barring you from placing new machines within 5 miles of any location they served for 2 years. $3,800 was more cash than you'd ever held at once, and you almost took it purely from the shock of the number. Ellen ran it the other way. 3 machines clearing roughly $600 a month, kept and grown at your own pace, was worth more than $3,800 within 7 months if nothing else changed, and the exclusivity clause would have quietly capped your growth in the one direction you actually wanted to go. You told the rep no. He said the offer expired that Friday. It expired. You did not lose sleep over it. Growth after that stayed boring on purpose, the way Renata had warned you it would if you were doing it right. 1 machine roughly every 4 months, each one paid off from the root's own earnings before the next one went in. No debt beyond what you'd started with. Locations came from other locations, the way Philip mentioned you to a colleague running the imaging department's waiting area, the way the community college snack lounge manager mentioned you to the gym 2 buildings over. By the 2-year mark, you had 7 machines clearing just under $1,900 a month combined, more than your gurney shifts paid after taxes, and you had stopped thinking of any single number as the whole story. People who hear about the machines always ask the same question, and it's the wrong one. What's the trick? There isn't a trick. There's a location, a commission, a product cost, and a route. And once you understand the anatomy, it stops looking like magic and starts looking like a small, honest supply chain. The location is the scarce part because foot traffic without a machine already parked on it is rare and gets rarer the better it is. The commission runs 10 to 15% of gross to whoever controls the space, paid on time, every time, because a location that stops trusting you replaces you in a week. Product cost eats another third, less if you buy smart and route your restocking, so the driving time serves 6 machines instead of 1. What survives all of that, 35 to 45% of gross depending on the mix, is the actual number, and across 7 machines averaging $410 a month each in gross sales, that comes out to roughly $1,200 net, arriving whether you restock yesterday or you're restocking tomorrow, because the machine doesn't know the difference and doesn't care.
There was a counterexample, and Renata made sure you heard it early.
A man 2 towns over had put 14 machines on 3 separate credit cards in 8 months, chasing every location he could find without checking foot traffic first, and half of them cleared less than the minimum payments the debt cost him monthly. He wasn't stupid. He was in a hurry, and Vending doesn't reward hurry. It rewards the person who checks the traffic count before signing anything and pays for machine number 4 with the money machine number 1 already made. Renata didn't tell you the story to scare you off scale. She told you because she said the entire business runs on one piece of arithmetic. Almost nobody bothers to do before they're already in debt over it. Does this specific spot, at this specific commission, actually clear more than it costs to be there? Everything else is decoration. You gave your notice at the hospital in the spring, 2 years and 4 months in, the route at 9 machines, clearing just over $2,400 a month. A year of expenses sitting untouched in the LLC's account, the way Ellen had insisted before she'd call it real. Your supervisor, a decent man named Marcus, who trained you on your very first gurney run, asked what you were moving on to, and you said route sales and service, self-employed, which described exactly nothing and satisfied him completely. Your last shift ended at 6 in the morning. You walked past the third-floor break room on your way out, past the first machine, still humming, still exactly where Philip had let you put it 2 years earlier, and it didn't know your shift had ended. It was already halfway through restocking your next paycheck. You found Renata that autumn at the community college snack lounge, retired from her own route now, sold off her last machine to a kid half her age the same way she'd once sold you your third one. You brought her a coffee from a machine that wasn't hers anymore and told her the whole run. 9 machines, Philip, the buyout offer, the man with 14 machines on 3 credit cards. She listened the way she always had, patient, half amused, checking your math out loud without meaning to. When you thanked her for the coffee she'd once bought you for free, back before any of it started, she waved it off and said the coffee was never the point. The point was that you were the only person on that floor who ever read the jam light instead of kicking the machine. Everybody else wanted it fixed. You wanted to know why it broke. It's an ordinary Thursday now, a different building, a shift you don't work anymore. The third-floor machine is on its second commission agreement with Philip, renewed without either of you raising your voice once, and it sold out of diet soda by 10 last night, the way it always does. 9 machines, 4 buildings, 1 route sheet that fits on a single laminated page, none of them anywhere anyone would call impressive. That was always the appeal. A vending machine is furniture until somebody explains what it actually is, and by then most people have already walked past it 100 times without asking. You did the math once on a slow shift with a jam light blinking, and you never really stopped. If this kind of quiet arithmetic is your kind of story, the subscribe button is right there, and it costs exactly nothing, which is the best price this channel knows. A new one arrives tomorrow. Same time, same desk, different machine.